Good afternoon. I'm Leah Pinsky. Most of you all know, I guess, I'm the executive director of Art Encounter. I also kind of wear two hats because I'm deeply connected to the nitty gritty of one of our programs, which is the mural program. I started that with my husband, Dustin Harris, in 2017, prior to being executive director, but this is such a wonderful organization. I've still been able to stay really close to the program. All right, so I'm going to chat up Brett, and he's going to tell us about his history and his development as an artist. Really fascinating person. You may have watched the video that I sent out, which is just a fascinating little preview about Brett. You will have learned that you live in Rockford, and we'll find out if you're actually from Rockford or where you're from, but spent the first part of his career in his 20s and 30s as a professional musician, actually. Was a drummer in a rockabilly band called the legendary Shake Shackers, I think.
Shack Shakers.
And what is it? Shack Shakers. Yeah, legendary Shack Shakers. Should just let you tell your story. But while you were building that career in the background, you were also sort of becoming an artist, and then something happened, and there was a transition, and then your being an artist became your primary occupation. First as a studio artist, and then as a muralist. So today we're going to learn about your story. The highlights along the way. And we definitely want to talk to you about your specific situation of being a colorblind artist and how that's impacted you. And most recently, that you've been able to achieve the opportunity to see what your murals and artwork really looks like with the help of some glasses. So Brett, I'm curious, as a kid, what were you into when you were growing up? Were you drawn towards art, towards music, towards both? Tell us about your childhood a little bit.
And initially, sports, but
Okay.
and I've always kind of carried that oddly as an artist who's into watching sports, playing sports, and following it. But got into music. I started playing drums in junior high school. Had a drum set for maybe 3 months when some other kids in school found out that I had one, and they wanted to start a band. And they said, "Hey, can we come to your house and play?" And then that sparked a 3-year band and playing out when I was 15 or 16. So got into the visual arts and performance art right away. I'd always been into color and drawing, all along, just growing up, just doing my own drawings and showing my parents and them being supportive, like, "Oh, good job," and I don't know if it was good or not, but just good supportive parents, very important.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Did you have any formal training in art? Did that come in at any point?
No, didn't do any college.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't do too well in high school, undiagnosed ADHD. I went every day. I was there with a smile, just didn't do too well. And I would draw a lot, and I'd be very productive doing things that I was good at or liked to do. Wasn't always good with the homework and whatnot, but I graduated and was playing in a solid band in high school, and was a very good skateboarder and doing art. Never saw art as a career path, though. Just something I like, drawing or whatnot. That didn't come till I was almost 30, getting serious about that.
Right. So you followed music as a career path. Tell us a little bit about what that looked like. You were on tour a lot, and then coming home.
That's what took me out of the Rockford area. I did grow up around Rockford in Belvedere, which is right next to it, right on I-90 there where the Chrysler is. Played a lot of music and, got known as a pretty good drummer around the area here. And I had, when I was like 21, 22, I had an elder musician friend, who was fond of my talents. He said, and he was nearing 35 at that time, and I was 20. He said, if I had your talent and I was your age, I would do one thing different. I'm like, what's that? He's like, leave. He said, you should go to a bigger city.
Uh-huh.
You know, he probably saw that, I didn't do any college. What's this going to turn into in the Rockford area? So, not everybody likes to hear it, but I call it a great starter city. But for talent and to be exposed to the masses and people who don't know you too, which is very important. Go to a bigger city, you'll find out if you're any good or if you got some stuff,
Yeah.
So I'm glad that I was given that advice, and I lost a job around that time. So I headed to Chicago in 2001.
I see. And then you were on tour. So then you joined this band, and you said
not right away though. I took like 3 or 4 years to develop as a musician and join every band I could in Chicago. And that just got me around and got me playing with touring bands and stuff. When they would come through, I was in a good band and we'd open for them. And so that's how I got seen by people from other places. And that's what eventually happened. I was drafted or hired by a bigger, more established band out of Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
And they were going to Europe all the time and playing 48 states and Canada. And I hopped onto that wagon, and that was right about the time that I started seriously dabbling with visual art. As a bike messenger in Chicago, I'd work till 2 or 3 every day and go and hang out on my back porch and just do a painting. I'm bringing home windows from the alley. So I got into reverse glass painting. So I was in Logan Square. I'd walk the alleys just because I liked junk and like to see what people throw out, what people purge in the city. And I found a stack of windows one day, and I immediately saw the value. This is a framed canvas. Not only is it free canvas, it's framed, and it's got some appeal to it. So I started experimenting on those with spray acrylics, paint markers, whatnot. And that was earlier in the year that I was drafted by the touring band. So I'd gotten 20 or so pieces of art under my belt, ready to go for an art show. And then I left on tour for about 10 years.
This is a great opportunity for me to show the group here some of his work. And so just, again, your roots, drummer, this is the band you were on tour with for how many years?
I did about 10 years, front to back. Yeah.
10 years. And then, but while you were home.
200 dates a year or so. It was pretty intensive.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And so while you were at home, you were building up this portfolio to start doing, you said, this, right? This is like a photo of one of your art fairs.
Yeah, I started doing street fairs around Chicago and mostly Chicago, Milwaukee, Madison. And a scary thing to get into because you have to pay a lot of money to get into it. And you don't know if it's going to sell, if you're going to make your money back. Yeah. About $600, that's scary for an artist to just throw out there. How do you come up with that in the first place? And the first one I did was Wells Street Art Fair down in Old Town. And it was a huge success. $5,000 plus in 2 days, Wow. Like, oh, this could work.
What I hear continually, as I've talked to you in the past and continue to talk to you today, is that you are not afraid to try new things. You're not afraid to take risks and just go in with an open mind and see what happens. And I think that's been so beneficial to just like your career. Like, I don't know, let's try it. Sure, let's do the drums. Sure, let's do the tour. Let's try the art. Let's try the this type of work on the glass. Let's do the art fairs. I've pulled up a couple of images of the work on glass. So these are windows. Mm-hmm. And Brett, when we look at your work, we'll look at the some of the formal interests you have and color and line and, tone and gradations, as well as subjects and, kind of the pop. But can you tell us a little bit about these pieces? I'm very interested in the process, especially. They're gorgeous, right, everyone? Art Encounter folks, gorgeous. Yes, lots of nodding heads.
Yeah, these two, they're all done with the method I mentioned. This is spray paint, spray acrylics, artist acrylics. They're these high-end imported spray paints that like graffiti artists use. And this was the first place I applied them, was on glass. I never did any illegal painting in the streets or anything like that. I saw that they were controllable and a bit like airbrush. They were clean and not gooey like hardware store spray paint. And it comes in 300 colors. So what a great line of paint. I'd work on the back side of the glass from the viewing surface and use masking tape, X-Acto blades, many blades, because they get dull pretty quick on glass. And I really had a sharp eye for precision, and I really like crisp, clean lines. And much of the time spent on these was all the cutting, the drawing first on the masking tape, and then the cutting everything. You cut everything before you even put one color down, because once you start painting, it's hard to see those cut lines anymore, or any of the drawn lines.
Right.
A bit of a puzzle, but I had a paint booth with very bright lights and sharp knives, and I got very good at this process. And the composition here, I use math a little bit. You start with, like the one on the left, I had 4 families of color, and then with one square or one corner, I'd start with number 1 and go 1 through 9. And then the next color, I'd start it at 3, and then would go 3 through 9, and then start over at 1. So 4 sets of that. I did this blindly and did not look at it until I was done. I didn't flip it until I was done.
Oh my! And there's no sketch. You just sort of
the sketch was directly on the glass. I drew it right on I covered a whole surface with masking tape, and then draw it there and cut it there. So that is the sketch.
Right, but no like colored pencil or any sort of like smaller version to see. No, this was the first and only iteration of this. Wow. Yeah,
just kind of working in a pattern and spraying and see what happened. And I really love the wave that it formed naturally just through the mathematics of it.
Yes, and I'd like to invite anyone to unmute, share either your comments, your perceptions of this piece, because I know Art Encounter, we can't hold back, and I imagine, if there's something you want to say, as is that it's yes. So yes, Terry.
I only have one thing to say. This does not look like something done by a person with ADD. I mean, it's really intensely technically beautiful.
The real interesting thing with ADD too, though, is when people are super focused and interested in something, then you can just completely tunnel vision in a way that even other people can't. So it is an interesting double-edged sword from what my experience.
Yeah,
that's right. Joanna?
I'm excited by the changing shapes from the triangles to the squares and how that keeps moving. And really, really amazing, particularly with the colorblind, whatever, however that plays into it.
I would just rely on the value. I'd have color 1 through 9 for a color family, the lightest and the darkest. And that's for some of the color families, that's all I could go by, because the red was so the same and the green is all the same. The one on the right, actually, those turquoises, I know what they are because I use them so much, but I don't see those very well. That's basically grayscale to me.
Wow.
But
we are going to see a little bit later an image of what he sees and what you'd see if you didn't have the colorblind limitation. So I'm going to go, there's another one. I have another set of just abstract ones, and one's, the one on the left is real about color and line, and the other really more about line and depth. So it looks like there's two levels on the one on the right here. Is that tape above the can you tell us a little bit about?
It's just I strapped two windows together.
I see.
Did the paintings completely separate and then just screwed them together.
I see. Great.
Yeah.
So that's still like a cream colored paint that you have on.
Yeah. I guess so. Yeah, that's the least wild colored painting I've ever done. It seems like minimalist in colors.
Oh, but it's not unwild. It's definitely pretty wild,
Design wise, yeah, it's very wild.
It's hypnotic.
Yeah. And if you walk past it too in person, it would move and change.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing. You see it from different levels, and how do you line up? I mean, what I love about this is, you've got this like just pure horizontals and verticals in the lower left, and then moving into what looks like when diagonals are against horizontals, and just all the different plays and the different kinds of parallelograms, I guess, those little, that show up behind. So that's gorgeous. And the one on the right, I would say, is a little bit of a preview to that first big mural in Nashville that we're going to look at.
Definitely. Yeah, that may have been one of the first little gradient pieces I did, experimenting. Yeah.
Oh, really? This is maybe one of the first ones?
Yeah, it definitely seems like an early one.
Does anyone want to make any comments on anything you're seeing here before I move to the next?
I'd like to make a comment on the others. I didn't get on it in time to talk, but the first two, I kept looking at the.
Sorry. Whoops, I'm going in the wrong direction. How do I do that? Go back, Leah. Sorry.
Okay. I kept looking at the squares and saying they're squares, but they were so different. I was trying to figure out how he got so many different movements by just using the squares. It was amazing what he did. I looked at the different patterns because they're so, just with the squares, they're so different just by the colors and how he applied them and in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of the Warhol multiple screen prints, how it's the same, it's the same composition and line, but because of the screen printing, there's slight variation. So yeah, each of these little squares has the same X through it, same X. It's the same square with an X through it. But as you look, I mean, you get dizzy trying to kind of decipher, right? Because different shapes come forward and it really starts to look three-dimensional in places. It really has negative. It's like an Escher in a way.
I need to do a mural like that.
Yes. That's next. So we looked at a couple of your abstract ones, and then you have a lot of fun with subject matter too. But of course, continuing to integrate your love of line and color and these gradations. I chose these two next to each other just because they're both heads, skulls of sorts, and there's a color, collaboration between the two. They sort of balance each other, but they're quite different. I'd be interested in a little bit of the story behind these. The one on the right is particularly curious to me. I did get a little bit of background, but I'm sure our guests would love to hear about what draws you and what, how you choose subject matter and why these.
I'll talk about that one with the drill and the head. This was inspired by a documentary I saw about John Claude and Christo, the artists who used to drape islands with fabric, valleys with fabric, and whatnot. They did a string of very big projects over 20 or 30 years. And in the documentary, they showed that, in the 2 or 3 years that these big projects took to pull off, they would be constantly doing drawings, making little models of their project, like of the theory of their project, of just the process, little sketches, paintings of what they envisioned in the end. And so this was me working on a sculpture that I was making. And it's featured right in there. I had this idea of a full head covering, and in the end I did cover the whole face and back of my head and everything, all with sunglass lenses. So I was going to thrift stores, rummage sales, whatnot, just buying all glasses, and looking for interesting colored lenses, and usually cheaper ones that were like plastic that I could grind and shape into to fit this puzzle. The drill was used to drill tiny little holes that I could take little needle nose pliers and use jewelry loops and link these together. It's a very fragile piece in the end, but I use elastic loop on the back so I can actually like slide it onto my head, and it fits like a glove. But this is a process piece, inspired by John Claude and Christo, of the process of making that sculpture. The one on the left, I believe, was a commission, someone from Texas who liked my feathers that I was doing. I was doing large, colorful feathers at the time, and this person wanted a couple of those featured in there. And I did a skull and chose a linear background like this, since I was getting into the geometrics of it all and doing color gradients.
Can I ask a question? Just about the process here. You're painting from behind on the glass, correct? So
backwards.
Backwards painting. So whatever is in the front has to go on first, and you're painting as you layer back, right?
Yeah, you can really paint any section, but I would tend to paint darker colors first because they're more opaque. If I went and painted white first and then painted over it with a darker color, then it would mute that color. But it didn't really matter too much what you paint first. But when it comes to shading within, say I peeled off a piece of tape within the section, say on the top of the drill, that shows like the light reflection. That was probably one piece that I peeled off. And to show that little bright light spot on it before the gray went in, you have to hit it with whatever you're going to shade first and then fill in with the solid color. So it's totally reversed from painting on the front surface. If you're going to shade something, you do that second or last. You put in the color and then you shade it to make it look contour. But any shading here needs to happen first.
That's a great question. So for example, that red sunglass piece that's at the top,
yep.
that has the glare, really, right, of the two lights that are coming from above, that has to be done. So if I was
painting that section and I can see it looks like darker red in the bottom and lighter in the top, so to paint that little piece, I would hit it, with, it looks like just a little spray paint, like just little dots for the light, and then hit with the darker red from the bottom and fill in with the lighter red. And spray paint is so smooth that it can make a nice soft transition easily without having to wipe with a wet brush or something.
I don't understand it. It's you talked about using the sunglasses. You didn't you use the sunglasses on it, so it's 3D. Is that it?
Well, the sunglass lenses are not actually on this painting, but I actually made that sculpture.
Oh, you made the sculpture and you put them together because you said you could put it on your head, the sunglass piece. So you're basically copied reality, what you had made, correct?
Yep. Yeah, okay. I did this painting from a photo of me making the sculpture.
Okay, I was very intrigued, if you don't mind me saying, with your face being all dotted in different colors. Yeah. And then on the red lens, there's the two dots. And I was wondering if you were trying to take something from yourself being all dotted up and putting it into this person. Because I assumed if you're drilling into, I thought you were drilling into their head, but I don't think you were. You're just drilling into the wire.
Well, it's a styrofoam head, so you could do anything to it. It was just kind of to hold the form while I made the sculpture. The connection between the dots, I don't think I had a connection there, but the reason for putting the dots in my face, instead of trying to doing faces is very tough, And then instead of trying to feature what my face actually looks like, the dots and colors in my head represent just the creativity, the creative process, the colors of it all. The colors being like fun, creative process, I guess.
Awesome.
Yeah, I
Like
love that.
a
Because,
gumball.
yes, you're so color forward, right? That's just like these myriad of colors that are just bouncing around in your head, ready to, shoot out. So,
When in doubt, use all the colors.
right. And again, this speaks to your desire to just experiment, try something new, like, first of all, the whole process of making the sculpture, like I saw Christo wrapping things. I want to wrap a head in sunglasses, which I think is very interesting, again, given your vision, right? Your specific vision, and then to document that and explore a piece. And it's just got so much going on, right? There's so much precision in the head itself, and there's so much looseness. Is this actually from your table, like experimenting with the colors? Those are like lines of color underneath
On the table?
Yeah.
I think I was trying to actually recreate my table in my workshop.
Right,
Because
your
it was
workshop, yeah.
covered with paint already. And there was a reason to want to cover a head in shade. My mother had melanoma. She ended up passing from it, and the only silver lining to my mom's illness is I was checked out for the first time ever, and I had melanoma then, at the age of 36. The first time I was ever checked, I had it.
Wow.
Stage 1.
Oh my.
And that's allowed me to stay ahead of it. She was not able to, but now just being outside and doing what I do with murals, I feel like the sun's trying to kill me, and I want sunscreen works, I guess. I hate wearing it. So I do other things. I wear SPF clothing, wear a big floppy brimmed hat, this was just something from within me, I guess, a creative way to make a sculpture about that whole thought,
Absolutely.
Of screening yourself from the sun, protecting yourself.
Yes. Well, I'm so sorry to hear your story, and it creates so much more meaning to this piece and personal, a personal piece of you. So we're going to move to how you came from. Well, I'm not going to actually go and look at a couple more here, but we did see this on the left, and now we see this. So at some point you said, I want to go big. Tell us about how you moved from painting.
I've been saying that for a while.
Huh? You'd been saying it for a while? Yeah,
I had been saying that for a while. I feel strongly that if you put something out into the universe, it helps things happen. Just keep putting it out to enough people. Eventually something will happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a piece in Nashville. It wasn't your first, but it was your first big piece. And was sort of like, do what you want.
Yeah. And I think my friend who was in the music industry, as was I, he was the engineer that recorded several albums for my band. He left that business, sold his studio, and went into real estate in Nashville, which was a very smart move. Because it's one of the fastest growing cities in America.
Yeah.
So he's always been following my art, and he's probably from the first year I started putting it out there on Facebook or social media, he was into it and kind of followed it. He's like, wow, not only can you drum pretty well, you can do this stuff. And he saw that I was getting in the gradients, and he liked how vibrant it was and how universally likable it is. Mm-hmm. He bought this pretty beat up building down there and had the parking lot done and had the facade done, and got some businesses in there, including one of his own. And this broad side of it was facing downtown Nashville, down Dickerson Pike, and you could see it from a far ways away, almost downtown. And he wanted to put this, he wanted to let everybody know that this building is here,
Yeah.
we're here. There's a great coffee place in there that he started up. Still really, really good business. It's still going. He said, "Can you make this building colorful?" And
you did. You did.
He knew I would rise to the occasion.
Yeah. And so
he said,
I'll
get a lift, and can you come down and make this happen?
That's great. I love the little arrow on the right side. In fact, this photo that I found here, I'm not even sure. There might be still a little bit more to do in the lower left-hand section or not. But so this one kind of put you on the map. You said you promoted it on social media, and it seems like since then the phone has not stopped ringing. You told me, I think you've done like 80 to 100 murals over the last 5 years, which is phenomenal, really outstanding. You're probably at a place now where like you have to say no, which I'm sure for you is hard because you and we're so grateful that you did not say no to us. But I'm going to take through a couple of, just to see, you've done so many different kinds of murals. So you're very, the pop and the color is obviously something that a lot of businesses would be very drawn to, which is great because businesses can afford to pay artists to make murals, so building a portfolio there, a food truck. This is like an indoor, one of those, like, what do they call
indoor
skydiving? Yeah, skydiving. And
that's like a rental party room that I did that in.
I have to say, lucky to find Brett who does this kind of work because it's gorgeous, right? I mean, these pieces are gorgeous works of art, and they also move a business's brand forward. So that's kind of amazing, and you've got to play so much here with your color, and I assume this is probably part of their logo, but the images of them flying, it's just, these are gorgeous. What's next? A couple more images of, you mentioned to me, okay, so we've got, again, on the left, this looks like an outside piece sell at near a food establishment, and a bird on the side of the building. Sorry, a few birds. I don't know where this location is on the right.
That's in Rockford. That's downtown Rockford.
I see. But I remember you'd mentioned like you just wanted to use these murals to try new things, right? Keep trying new things.
Yeah, definitely. I don't say no. In the beginning, I didn't say no to a lot of offers. If they had an idea of what they wanted, I'd help them flesh out their ideas into a mural. Or if they liked what I did already, I could surely come do what I do on their wall. But just the sky's the limit. I wanted any and all opportunity to paint outdoor and have large pieces in public. It just was exciting to me, and it was just the evolution of it all, going from studio art to public art, street art, working for brands. And the brand you see there on the left, Beefaroo, that is a company that started in the 50s in Rockford and run by a family. They have 7 locations here that all do really well. If you ever go through Rockford, it's like the best fast food there is, quality stuff. They finally they sold or were bought out by a bigger company from Texas 2 years ago. And now I'm the artist for their expansion. Now I'm doing a large mural for them in Springfield, Missouri, starting next week.
Great.
They're going Missouri, Indiana, Michigan, probably all over the place real soon. But I've met with their new corporate owners, and they like what I've done at all their places in Rockford and want to keep me doing that moving forward.
That's wonderful, and that can support your everything else, right? Your studio practice and other pieces as you go. So I'm going to take through just a couple more. You can see no matter what Brett's painting, there's a real identifiable Brett signature with the colors, with the real deep affiliation towards gradation and and dynamism. And I just love these examples too, right? Like beyond murals, painted surfaces that just bring more brightness and vitality to different areas. You originally became interested in to the group that we were working with in Evanston. Oh, you're putting your glasses on.
Yeah, I forgot. I've never seen that mural with the glasses on, and now it's even more effective. I purposely did all black and white grayscale flowers outside of Love.
Uh-huh.
Colors inside, but still some of the colors that I knew were outside of grayscale were not really popping to me. But with these glasses, now that word love pops out even more, because everything within those letters is super vibrant.
Are you doing this for the first time? Have you never looked at this mural with those glasses on?
No.
Wow.
Yeah, it's way up in Minnesota, so I don't get to drive by it much.
Oh my. Okay, I'm gonna just put a pin in that. I want to come back to the glasses. So, but flowers, I know you grow flowers and you're very interested in painting flowers. That was sort of like was a transition from just this love of the gradations, right? And when we were working on, here's some interior stuff. You can see Brett is just so diverse and doing so many different things, from flowers now to leaves and different kinds of botanicals. What happens if you pull away from color and just focus on line, bringing in birds? This body of work was what really drew our group at the main dumpster mile to want to work with Brett, because they wanted to create the feeling of this tropical oasis, which is this area that has these restaurants come. If you don't live in Evanston, definitely want to make your way over to there. But here are some different, you can see how you're developing. Here's another beautiful exploration of like pulling back some of those colors, but in the background, kind of letting go, I guess, of the strict like line, and then doing looser fades underneath the shapes of the images themselves. This is an interior, but again, these are sort of the works that brought us to this. And I'm moving forward in the interest of time, but I do want everyone to see, if they haven't, this is the wall that Brett painted with us this summer at the main dumpster mile. Before, pretty sad, but after, boom. I love this before and after. I've been able to. So this is a stretch of the Union Pacific wall. And Brett, you went around the corner. You're like, no big deal. 2,000 square feet, no big deal. And tell us about, we've got a couple more images of that project here, but I'd be interested, I don't think I've even asked you. Let me show also. So this becomes a sort of a outdoor patio for a bunch of different restaurants. Right now the mural is obscured by the umbrellas, but it's a really lively space. So it's not just beautifying the street, but it's beautifying this whole like dining location here. But anything that you were sort of playing with anew on this project? I'm going to go to this one. It's got the most sort of things were you kind of pulling together on this?
Well, when you came to me, you told me what you were responding to from my past work, and like you just showed them the botanical line work with tropical colors popped in there. I know that the street they're calling the Oasis, and it really is beautiful with all those colored umbrellas and all the great people from the neighborhood just eating there and hanging out with their families every night. It was so nice to be working in that environment too, to kind of, bring it full circle. Like this is what it's all about. This is the scene that it's helping here, that's already here, that needs this. And so I think you had suggested the pastels, and I think my first draft was quite a bit wilder than this, but focusing on large areas of pastels, and then some large featured plants and flowers placed here and there, letting it breathe a little bit, and not being too busy, but a very nice backdrop and set scene to a lovely street there, a lovely happening every day. Yeah, I understand that the street's going to be paved soon too, and there's new landscaping. It's really a great place, and that restaurant La Principal is top notch. Love it.
Yes.
I was fed.
You probably ate everything on the menu
for 2 weeks, and anything they recommend, yep, I'll try that. Let's do that.
Yeah. Well,
they really take care of me. Yeah.
Oops. It's lovely to see. So, here, there's Brett's gradations, which you saw early, right? And then you've got more sort of rendered figures, as well as some of the line work, which I've seen in black, but it creates, there's such dynamism in the layers to put all of those things together.
And it was just very minimalist, but there's 3 layers I consider. There's the backgrounds and the rolling kind of hills, kind of swooshes, the gradient, and then there's very flat images that are just painted solid color, and then there's a few select images throughout that are detailed and shaded, and even drop shadows on things to give it that other dimension on a pretty simple composition.
And Brett painted this in a pretty efficient time period, which speaks to his professionalism, because it requires a tremendous amount of planning to know what layers to do first and what next, and how to prepare for that, and when you need to come in and project. Some of the things are projected and some of the things are free-handed. The last thing I want to land on is these glasses that you spoke about. And what this is right now. So tell us a little bit about the glasses you just put on.
Yeah, a company called Enchroma contacted me and asked if they could send me a pair, because I had seen some press that I did out in Rockford. They did a little story on the news earlier this summer, and the person interviewing me ended up being someone who's colorblind too. So we really got into that subject heavily, and that's probably how they searched the internet and found me. And they like to play to the artists who are colorblind, because it's a pretty interesting subject, especially someone who does large outdoor murals with so much color, and for someone to say, oh, he's colorblind, how does he do all those colors? Well, I explained before, I use the value system, light to dark. And my wife tells me, oh yeah, those are good colors, or don't use those colors together. I understand color theory quite a bit, but so the company sent me Enchroma glasses. I did a lot of tests before they sent them to me too, because they can actually fine tune them to what type of color blindness you have. And I found out that I have a pretty rare form. They said only 2% of people who are colorblind have your kind of color blindness. And that was news to me. I thought I had a pretty general thing, red-green. I wish I could remember what technically it's called right now. But they explained to me finally at the age 45, which I am now. People have tried to explain what color blindness is or why, but they explained to me that the keys in your iris that overlap to decipher color, blend color, translate color, my red and green keys are overlapped too far, way overlapped. I thought I was missing some keys or something, but this makes so much sense that you overlap red and green, and you got. They said basically what you have is a brown filter.
Interesting.
On red and green.
So the image on the bottom is what you normally see of a painting, a mural that you created, that looks to the uncolorblind eye like above, but to you see the below image, correct?
Well,
you see probably in a lot.
And I'm seeing what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, right.
But it makes sense. The top one's
the same?
Way more vibrant. No, they definitely look different. I think you did a good job of getting one on the bottom where the reds and pinks and purples look very muted and dirty, and a bit like grayscale, sometimes I can't guess what the heck a color is because it's a toss up. Like it could be this, could be that. It's just because it's muddy. But when the 3 news stations came out to film me putting on these glasses. The glasses were free to me. They're $400 glasses. Their only requirement was that if they set up some press, I show up and put the glasses on. So we did that, and it was pretty wild. I had a reaction to the red and orange and purple. It felt like it was on fire, like radiating orange, red, like I'd never seen before. And when I told my wife later, I said, is that all right? These colors are that hot? Like, should I not use those colors? Like, those are a bit loud. That's what I'm thinking. She's like, no, don't change anything.
Wow.
What you do with color.
That's fascinating. But, yes, I mean, and that's what's been so appealing, is how loud and vibrant and colorful the work is. So you certainly don't want to pull back from it. But, who knows? Maybe you'll explore some like more, I don't know, subtler in between tones or.
Yeah, I think what it has sparked in some of my newer projects is, when I'm planning the colors for it, when I'm in my studio looking at the color wall of paints, I'm, some paints that I never used before too much were kind of popping out to me as being more interesting than they were before. Like, oh, maybe I'm going to use this color palette a lot more because it looks better to me, or I understand it better.
So you paint glasses?
That's really what glasses have done. They've helped me understand what a color feels, certain colors.
Open for questions. So yes, Linda.
Do you actually paint with your glasses all the time now?
I don't paint with them on. No, I just use them to reference color or to make a decision. I think it's doing something to my brain. I think it's changing my perception of it. So now when I'm seeing orange without the glasses, it's looking more vibrant to me. Maybe it's just my understanding of it. And I say that because 2 years before I had these glasses, I went to Sonoma with my family. And when I left there, I told my wife, like, I feel like I know what the color red is now. Just being surrounded by that much red, like a large palette of red was resonating more than just seeing it in a small spot. But I think seeing this more and more, seeing the colors the way they're supposed to be, I understand it better with my regular eyes, which is pretty neat.
That is fascinating. Who else?
May I ask a question briefly? It piggybacks F on top of what you just said. Then if you were to paint with your glasses on, let's say for a long period of time or for one piece, would you be a vastly different painter?
I don't think so.
Okay, because you've had all these years of references of what color is.
I'm pretty set in using the paints that I've used, and I don't see any reason to change. Might be maybe I'll put this color next to another color that I think works better with it now, or I understand that. Color combinations maybe, but composition wise definitely not. But maybe color choice here or there. I'm sure there'll be something, some sort of different. Yeah.
The question I have is, now you have so many mural commissions. So do you still have time for studio art? And if so, how has your studio art changed?
I'm doing it more or less frequently. I used to take in all commissions, welcome it all the time and not say no to anything. Now with commissions, I'm telling people, talk to me in November. I'll do a few months over the winter. But even last year, I found myself pretty solidly booked with indoor murals. So becoming a little bit of a question mark whether or not I'm going to accept much as far as commissions, because Another reason also too is I want to do original artwork, and I can't remember the last time I popped out an original. You know, people ask me to do art exhibits in their business or in a gallery, and like I don't really have anything fresh, and I don't feel like showing this old stuff.
You'll get back to it when you absolutely need to. I was curious because you began with the windows and
Yeah.
what materials you would be using.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I have kind of moved on from using windows because I like more of a modern feel. I'm still doing reverse glass painting, but rather now I'm going to the hardware store, buying a specifically sized piece of glass instead of a pound size and conforming to that. You know, I'll buy a bunch of 24 by 24 sheets of double strength glass and then build my own modern frames on them. Because I feel like more people want a modern feel rather than an old window hanging on their wall.
Really nice.
I used to do things like trim them up, you know, and paint the window frames to make them look more modern. But this, it has a real sharp, tight frame on it now. And that's one of the reasons I brought the studio to my house, or built one in my backyard. So it's just more accessible. I can pop out there and put in a couple hours. I have kids too, so they don't leave me alone too much. But at night after they go to bed, you know, I'll just pop out in the backyard and do some work. And that's the way I can keep it close and be more efficient than having to run out to my studio downtown and
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
This winter I hope to not do too many commissions and hope to get weird on some new paintings, really.
Yeah, that's the muralists. They wait for it to get warm and then they just wait for it to get cold. So they can, you know, it's always a juggle. Well, thank you so much, Brett. It was such a pleasure to talk to you.
Sure,
Art
thank
Counter
you.
guests, members, thank you for joining today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for tuning in. This was fun.